So I think it's fair to say Nintendo Treehouse has a fairly bad rep when it comes to their localizations. Whether it be a case of too many memes in their translation of Triforce Heroes, or the absolute and outright changing of character development and dialogue in Fire Emblem Fates, to the removal of the petting game in said Fire Emblem game, which is funny when you consider the furore around Crunchyroll and them removing a petting mini game from one of their upcoming anime titles. But regardless, I think it's fair to say Nintendo Treehouse has earned a lot of ire from fans over the course of the last few years, and well, it never really bugged me. I'm not gonna I'm gonna be that guy. All right, it never really bugged me. I mean, Tharja was still is my Fire Emblem waifu. So only not getting to pet Shara, yeah, not that big a loss. And I didn't care for Fates enough to get invested in their characters to really feel like I was missing out like some big neck-bearded weeb. But as a gaming and in turn the anime community, in turn of our localization and how we feel about product being brought from east to west, we tend to prattle and preach about, the intent of the creator and the original vision and that ilk. And I get that, and I fully support it. I'm against censorship, I should say, where possible. I don't like feeling like a diluted product is being sold to me. But at the same time, when your target demographic might be a decade or two below my age group, I understand where changes need to be made. But I don't necessarily believe Fire Emblem was the hill for Treehouse to die on in that regard. But then I came across something today. I was browsing the old TV tropes. As you do, it's a great resource. But I was particularly reading through their Breath of the Wild entry. And I've recently had this rekindled love of Breath of the Wild. Not that it ever went away, but in the last few weeks and maybe months, I've just had this desire to consume anything and everything about the game all over again. I've had this sort of renaissance about the game, only a year out from its initial release. So when I came across this particular thing, it finally clicked. For me, I finally got where the ire for Nintendo Treehouse among the wider Nintendo community is, and I'd like to talk to you about that today. Because today I learned that in the Japanese version of Breath of the Wild, your adventure log, the adventure log that keeps track of all your missions, tells you where you need to go, updates after you've completed certain tasks and the missions themselves. Well, today I learned that the Japanese version of that adventure log is written by Link himself. And that bugs me to no end. That something that gives the mute hero a lot of personality, a lot more, and that's on top of what the game does. Right? When you're in the desert area, you know how much of a pungent master Link can be. But this sort of tipped the scales, pun intended, against, or tipped the scales for me and my feelings toward Nintendo Treehouse, and how I think maybe they shouldn't be allowed to look after as much as they do, or maybe they should have somebody from Nintendo of Japan step in a little bit and take the reins a bit when they go off the beaten path just a bit. With that said, let's get into it, and I hope this is as much news for you as it was for me, because this was the first I've heard of it. So let's jump right on in. Okay, so first and foremost, before we get started, I want to give full props or, credit on this discovery to vadnyl.tumblr.com. Yeah, I'll be posting a link in the description down below so that you can read all this for yourself. But, obviously, I want to give credit where credit's due because this is the post that TV Tropes linked me to. So it's only right. I don't want to go, oh, I made this. I don't want anyone thinking I'm just like, oh, I made this discovery. I just want to talk about this because I haven't seen anybody. I didn't see any. I didn't see anything on Twitter. I didn't see anything from Go Nintendo, from Game Explain, from Reddit. This is no. Maybe I've been living under a rock and people are fully aware of this already. But this is new to me, and I want to give credit where credit's due. So that once again is vadnyl.tumblr.com, and I'll be posting a link to the article in the description down below. And I'll be reading this verbatim as they post it, because I feel that really gets the context of things across. So we start with a spoiler alert. Obviously, if you haven't beaten the game, turn around and leave now. There are spoilers here. So, at this point, our beloved game, Breath of the Wild, has been out for around half a year already. So that just shows how far this goes back. If you have played the game, you are probably very familiar with the adventure log feature in Breath of the Wild that helps you keep track of all your missions and side quests. Or else it's pretty much impossible to remember if you were catching chickens for this guy or collecting weapons to show that kid who's boss. But here's the thing, have you ever thought about the adventure log's origin? Or who or what is helping Link keep track of his missions? If your answer is the Sheikah Slate, or the system, being the game, which is what I've always taught, I'm going to go ahead and assume you own a European or an American copy of the game, because apparently in the Japanese version of the game, there is evidence that shows Link is the one who wrote the adventure log to keep track of his own journey. And I know what you're thinking at this point. You're thinking, okay, so what? So Link wrote the adventure log. Big deal. It's not like this is going to change the gameplay in any way. Which is true. However, Link didn't just record his missions in the adventure log. According to the Japanese version of the game, Link would often type up some of his own thoughts and comments on what he was doing aside from his current objectives, and this could give us deeper insight into Link's character. So here's an example. This is what shows up after you complete the Hero's Sword quest. The content of the two versions are very similar, but notice the use of the text here is using kanji, so I'm presuming it's either bokuwa or orewa in pick 1. This is evidence that the adventure log is written by Link, who's talking about himself in first-person narrative instead of the system. With that in mind, the Japanese version can be translated to, I've finally retrieved the legendary Master Sword. I don't know if it's just an illusion, but the sword itself seems to be delighted about this. To this moment, Princess Zelda is still inside Hyrule Castle, fighting to suppress the calamity. She is still holding on to the faith in me, believing that I will definitely come for her. But with the power that I have now, can she be really saved by myself? Okay, so translation, it's a lot of broken English, but you sort of get the idea. I finally retrieved the legendary Master Sword. I don't know if it's just an illusion, but the sword itself seems to be happy. At this moment, Princess Zelda is still inside Hyrule Castle, fighting to suppress the calamity. She is still holding on to her faith in me, believing that I will definitely come for her. But with the power that I have now, can I really save her by myself? That's so different in context. Like, you can see and hear what they did there, right? The English version replaced every first person pronoun Link has used with you. As someone who owns an American copy, or in my case European, and has never set the system language to Japanese, I was absolutely shocked when I was told the truth about this. Credits at the end. Remember how we could find diaries of NPCs all across Hyrule? Link's was right under our noses this whole time. And now that you know about this, does your adventure log seem a bit different than before? I will say, though, I'm having fun with the author's exasperations on this because I feel exactly the same way. So, we're going to look at next the captured memories entry alongside then the Royal Guard's gear entry, and then we'll keep going. So those are the next two we'll take a look at here. So captured memories is as follows. I finished visiting all 13 of the locations in the old pictures. I remembered everything I've been through together with Princess Zelda. In those memories of mine, Princess Zelda always strived to complete the task burdened onto her. Even if it's just a moment sooner, I want to save her as quickly as possible. I want to see her smile again, with these eyes of my own. Okay, the translation on this one is just off. I can't believe the English version completely omitted the last part and replaced it with some kind of mission instruction. Link has been fighting all this time to see Princess Zelda smile again with his own eyes. Oh my god. Not to mention those side quest logs. Oh, once you realize that all of the entries were written by Link himself, the seemingly trivial information recorded in those suddenly opens up so many more hidden sides of Link. It basically reintroduced Link as someone with normal human emotions instead of the silent hero depicted throughout the game. Let's talk about the caring Link who was worried about a girl he only met twice for putting herself in danger. I ventured inside and found part of the Royal Guard series, famous among equipment collectors. When those were shown to Parsi, the traveller at the stable, her curiosity about it seemed to be provoked more than ever by me. I hope she won't do anything reckless. As a sign of appreciation for bringing the town together and as compensation for the work done by me, a hefty amount of gems that were unearthed during the town's construction were given by Hudson to me. I wish the couple could live happily ever after. Okay, so again, look, it's a direct translation here. So it's, as a sign of appreciation for bringing the town together, and as compensation for the work I've done, a hefty amount of gems that were unearthed during the town's construction were given to me by Hudson. I wish the couple could live happily ever after. It's... I'm like, Link! Can we also... Again, I'm reading this blog entry verbatim because I'm agreeing with I feel the emotions that this author is putting into it. So can we talk about the reckless Link who apparently felt thrilled when he managed to knock out some monsters with his new companion? I captured the giant horse in Taobab grasslands. So that's why. It's indeed a really big horse. It trampled whatever kind of monster in its way with ease when it galloped. That was really cool. When it was brought back to Straya, by me, he was very surprised. So when I brought it back to Straya, he was very surprised. That's like, you just got this you've just got this Link now who's like, oh my god, this horse is a beast and can trample anything, compared to Giant was an accurate description, to be sure. The beast could probably trample monsters with ease. So robotic, the English version. And this is me, it's not the blog post. This is me freaking out because Look at that translation compared to what I read. Oh, why? Let's move on. Remember how Princess Zelda would talk about how much of a glutton Link is? Let's talk about Link the foodie who carefully noted down new recipes he learned along the way for future use. I brought Kiana the goat butter and hearty blue shell snail required for cooking seafood paella. She shared some of the dish with me as thanks. And then recipe. So, you've got that Link who's got really excited about food. He's diligently noting down recipes for future use. And then this one's probably my favorite just because of the humor to it. So we have a playful Link who tried to mimic the way Goron speak by adding Goron at the end of every sentence after he passed the test of will and became one of the bros. It's like, I kind of want to write down Kabata's bro motto, but there's not enough space, Goron? Oh, that's too bad, Goron. Compared to... So sweaty, brother. Kabata. Oh, that's all from Kabata. That's too bad, brother. The joke is still there, but I think it's funnier with him adding Goron to every sentence. The other one, well, it just sounds like Hulk Hogan, brother. Let me tell you something, dude. It's, and I just think it's funnier if Link tries to mimic the verbal tics, because the English translation, we get Goro on the end of every sentence as well as brother. So it's not like it's a foreign concept to the Western world. But I just think the Test of Will one is funnier in the Japanese. It's probably my favorite of the lot. But let's look at a more empathetic Link for the next one. So here we have the empathetic Link, who felt nervous for the guy in this side quest, then relieved when the couple finally got together. Which is, better than what we got. It's there's not a whole lot to read there, but it's just knowing that Link is more relieved when they got together after being nervous for the guy. The idea is there in the translation, I suppose, but it's a lot more personal in the Japanese. It's anyway. So we'll move on to the statue. Now, the blog post doesn't have a direct translation for the statue one, but I'm guessing, just looking at it, it's pretty much the same. The key point is the last line, so let's jump over to that one. Okay, so this one talks about the statue you can find in Hateno village that can swap around your heart containers or stamina containers. So it reads, I persuaded the horned statue to return my container. Now I can exchange containers for a small cost. The horned statue will buy a container or stamina vessel, a heart container or stamina vessel for 100 rupees and sell my choice afterward for 120 rupees. And then the last line is on the left, the Japanese equivalent of what the heck, basically. So it's what the, nandai o, or something to that effect. You've heard it in countless anime at this stage, like, oh, what the hell, man, or what are you playing at? It's just nandai o. I've probably butchered the pronunciation, but yeah. Anyway, the key line there is the one at the end, and it basically means what the heck. So yeah, I guess the statue is a bit too weird even for our great adventurer. And then finally, we have the entry that shows up after you complete the DLC trial. Judging by how this is placed on the blog post, it really looks like there's only 2 lines of significant importance here. The first line and the second line. So it basically reads, I finally conquered the merciless trial of the sword. I believe that Princess Zelda would be quite happy about how much I've improved. The middle, I guess it's I now have the mental and physical strength necessary to use the Master Sword to its full potential, or something. I have now honed my body and mind to use the full power of the Master Sword. Without the direct translation there, it's hard to tell, but again, you just replace anything with you with I, and you have the end goal. But again, it Link saying, "I finally conquered the trial of the sword," and I believe that Princess Zelda would be happy with how much I've improved. It just adds so much more to the game than how watered down and roboticized the English translations of this have been. So I'll continue with the rest of the post because it has a lot of sentiments that I can't help but agree with, as I've said over the course of this video. And oh my god, how are we 20 minutes into this? I thought this would be maybe 10 minutes, but all right, let's try and wrap this up. As we all know, Breath of the Wild is a game that focuses a lot on the freedom given to the players. Even the main story is broken down into the form of memories waiting for the player to find. As the players venture on into the wild, they would eventually find the information they need to learn about this world. The amazing amount of details you can find about Hyrule and its people is an important reason why Breath of the Wild is so attractive. On the contrary, the information available about our protagonist is very limited. The only piece of description that directly describes Link is in Zelda's diary, where she points out that he's a very quiet person, and he's a glutton, and the reasons why he's quiet. Okay, I've added those bits in. But that's it for our hero. Not! Link had always had the most extensive character description right under our noses. Nintendo got us. They got us good. But now we know. 6 months after the game's launch. Better late than never. Okay, so this is me talking again for a moment. Yeah. I'm not even mad at Treehouse or whoever did the localization for blundering the Ganondorf has given up on reincarnation line, because that's not how that's supposed to translate. The Dark Beast Ganon comes about as another because of another forced reincarnation. It's not that he's given up on it. And the scene immediately after outright contradicts it, saying he's going to return. I'm not even mad about that. I'm mad that we do see elements of Link's personality in the game. Again, I mentioned all the seal puns, and he can be a bit of a dick to some of the NPCs. There is character there, but the blog post is right. Aside from what we learn in Link's diary, and later on the diaries of the champions in the Champions Ballad DLC, our information regarding Link himself is nil. Hell, Ocarina of Time, I think, had a better characterization for Link and the characters around him and the world he interacted with and the feelings for the people in his world. Skyward Sword and Toon Link are the most animated and well-rounded in terms of character development. But Treehouse actively took this stuff away for no good reason. But as I said, I get it now. I get why people give Treehouse such a hard time. I mean, when you learn something like this a year and a bit out from the game's launch, that something as minute as the adventure log, something as minute as your quest log, right? The thing in the game that just tells you what you do and where you need to go is written by the main character himself, and sometimes those entries voice a little opinion at the behest of the character. I think it's just sick to take something like that away. I get the idea of Link being an avatar, you project yourself onto him. But you know what? For something like this, like that time has come and gone. Like Link needs to start being his own character. I think the time of him being an avatar for the player has long since gone. And when you know that the Japanese development did something like this and the American localization went, nope, it's just disheartening because how can you trust? Because how can you trust that the localization team are going to put their best foot forward, give you the best product possible, give you what you're expecting to pay for, and what we were talking about creators' intent earlier, and not just water it down? I'm actually upset to learn that Link's autonomy was ripped from him. Like it really does. It absolutely sucks, and it's sad. Speaking of sad, I think it's time I got off my soapbox, but not without one last detail from this blog post. I've been saving the PS for the very end of it, so let's take a look at that, shall we? Because it's kind of interesting. It's a nice little fun fact about Link in Breath of the Wild. He seems to like the Sand Seal game a lot. Of all the entries about racing minigames, the Sand Seal game is the only one where Link wrote, "I'll try to get a better score next time." That's really cute, you know, and Sand Seal racing is really fun in the game. But it's just another element. I keep coming back to those seal puns from earlier where he's like, "Let's seal the deal," or "Are you serious?" It's so that the seal racing game actually becomes his favorite. Yeah, I'd buy it. I totally buy it. But again, it's an element of the character that's just been ripped away. The autonomy of the character and the personality of the character that doesn't have the greatest amounts of room to show itself compared to characters like Zelda or Bosa, Daruk, Rivali, Mifa, Sidon. You know, compared to all these characters, Link's opportunities to show his character those opportunities are few and far between, and this is just another case of localization ripping that away from the character and making him less of a character and more of an avatar. And long term, I think that just hurts everybody in the end. But as I said, time to get off my soapbox. So thank you very much for joining me in this longer than expected ramble. I did not expect it to go nearly half an hour. That's another half-hour video where I thought might only take 10-15 minutes. But again, I have my own opinions to voice on these things as we're going through. Credits will be in the description down below. But I do want to shout out Vadnyl once again for all this information. It's been a great experience learning about all this, and especially at a time where I'm falling in love with Breath of the Wild all over again, to learn something like this it's just been absolutely fantastic. So links to your Tumblr post will be in the description down below, along with links to the Twitter post you came across at the user Automaru. All those will be in the description down below to give credit where it's due. And for any listeners who want to take a look at all this themselves, you should really jump into it. Speaking of Twitter, you can follow me on Twitter. Segue! You can follow me on Twitter at the code Crown. Link for that will also be in the description down below. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. Ring that bell. There's always content going live here in some manner or another, and I hope you'll join me for that if it's something you're interested in between rambles like this and live streams. I've always got something going on, so I hope you'll join me for that. Till next time, stay safe, take care, and have a good time in the Breath of the Wild.